Good morning. Welcome. I'm Bettina Hager. I am the Deputy Director of the ERA Coalition, as well as the co-chair of the Equal Rights Amendment Task Force of the National Council of Women's Organizations. I have a very long title. But I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm so excited to welcome everyone here. I heard that we have 31 states, so cheers to that, that are going to be up on the Hill. And I want to just not only welcome you to DC, but also tell you how important it is that you're here. There are lots of us who live in DC and work in DC, and we know that the most important voice is the constituent voice, and that's why we need to have you come here, go back to your homes, and encourage your friends to also do what you're doing. You can do it on the phone, if not in person. But it's so uplifting to see that the ERA movement is truly national, and it's made national by your faces. And so I want to say thank you and welcome, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Bettina. And what always pleases me so much when I see Bettina is that we see a leader, a young leader under the age of 35? Under the age of 30, right, yes. So our next generation is here. Most people have figured out, I'm Andrea Miller, I'm the co-executive director of Progressive Democrats of America. And thank you. And at PDA, we have a very, very special, incredibly dedicated team of people who work on the Equal Rights Amendment. While PDA is not a women's organization, we are a civil rights, social justice organization, and that is exactly what the ERA is. It is a civil rights, social justice issue. So back in 2012, when we formed actually 2013, was it? Good heavens. 2013, when we realized we really wanted to have a team of people doing the planning. And at PDA, we call it, because our founder was such an incredible feminist, and he believed that everything good that happened originated in the kitchen. So he wanted us to have a kitchen cabinet. So what I want to do right now is bring up two of our kitchen cabinet members. Now, 3 of the kitchen cabinet members, in addition to myself, are here. So Tammy Simpkins and Kathy Kalin from Ohio, please join me at the podium. This is, all right, the original ladies who started with me on the ERA 3-state strategy team. Mike Hirsch, come forward. Mike Hirsch is one of the men on our ERA 3-state strategy team, because all the work that we women do, it is really critical that this is a movement of men and women. This is not just women. This is civil rights, and everybody has civil rights. All right. Our one other leader, Johnny Johnson, is in Nevada. Johnny was not able to join us because a very dear friend of his who actually got him started in this movement is dying. An assemblyman in Nevada who worked with him on how to actually get the ERA introduced in the Nevada legislature in 2015. So Johnny was not able to come today, but he sends his best from Nevada. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tammy and Kathy.
Thank you, Andrea. It is so good to see a lot of our followers and activists that we've been working with for, well, actually before 2013, before the White House petition was launched. Right. And that's where a lot of people came on board, and we had a successful petition to the president to support removing the ERA deadline for ratification in the states. At that time, you had to get 25,000 signatures in 30 days, which we did. We went over that. And we had at one point, over 33,000 signatures. And Tammy, you wrote go ahead, tell them about how you wrote it.
Oh, yes. Along with Lou Ann Smith from ERA Now, which probably a lot of you are familiar with Lou Ann. She was great about building that base online. You know, she had the foresight to do that. And then, of course, we went back in 2012 to the We Are Woman rally that was held back in August, and we were able to get people to sign up to pledge to sign that petition when we launched it, because we knew we only had 30 days, and with a lot of help from a lot of organizations that are here today. Sandy with the ERA Alliance, and from Florida, we have Karen Teagarden with Unite Women, who helped tremendously with that. Bettina, Candy Graham, and Eileen with Women Matter. I mean, we're just, you know, we all work together, we work hard, and we're gonna get results. And being here in Washington, D.C. today, with all your faces here from all these states, is just amazing. So let's all give all ourselves a round of applause and just.
So with that.
And also Portia Bolger was a big help too.
Yes.
She was our Twitter extraordinaire back then, and just really got that base set up for us on ERA Action. So, and she's my mom too, so. So.
Yes.
And Andrea and PDA, they were, you know, we reached out. We weren't with PDA then. We just knew about PDA, and we made a telephone call, and Andrea calls us up, and we were so excited that a phone call returned. Right. And so that's how it all started. And here we are all together, and we're going to finish this up. So right now, we're going to do the roll call.
Yes.
You want to start?
We're still waiting for a busload from Minnesota, so they won't be able to stand, but we'll recognize them when they come in. Arizona, okay, we're starting off good here, okay.
Maybe they'll come in, just you do the left. I'll do the right.
Okay. Colorado. Can you stand,
up.
please? Thank you. District of Columbia, D.C.
Yep.
Florida. Illinois.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, there she is. Yes.
Kentucky.
Where'd she?
My mother's from Kentucky. It does, yeah. Maryland. Minnesota. You got some, yeah.
And there's a bunch of them coming, right?
I know we have one person from Mississippi that signed up. Mississippi.
Yeah.
Nope. North Carolina. New Jersey.
There's a lot of you girls that originated in New Jersey here too, isn't there?
Yeah, right. Ohio.
Ohio.
Rhode Island. I know she's coming later. That would be Judy Zimmer.
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Just running a little late.
Ooh, Virginia. Wisconsin. Oh, wonderful.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay, California. Connecticut. Connecticut must be running late. Delaware? Yay! Georgia. Yeah. Oh, okay. She's on the train? Okay. Indiana? Indiana must be on the train too, but they'll be here. Massachusetts? Not yet. Michigan? Missouri? Nebraska?
Ah,
Yay! New Hampshire? New York? There's some New Yorkers. Pennsylvania?
ah, yeah.
There she is. South Carolina? Texas? Woohoo! Yeah. We still have people on the way. In Washington.
She's on
Okay,
her
she's
way.
on her way. Okay. Well, we have a great start here and we have all day, so we're gonna get this done, right? We're
Right,
gonna
so with
get her
that-
done. I said we're gonna get her done, like, we're, okay.
We want to introduce. This has been wonderful to work with Senator Ben Cardin and his staff. And we have today here Bill Van Horn. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Hi, Bill. I'm looking around. Yes, he's here today, and in the senator's stead. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the United States Senate and the Dirksen Senate Office Building. Senator Cardin, sorry he could not be here today to attend. There's no votes today, so he's doing some constituent business in Maryland, but he was glad to reserve the room. And more importantly, Senator Cardin is the lead sponsor of SJ Res 15, which would, Andrew knows. So that would remove the deadline for the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. Senator Cardin thinks it's time to give the states one more chance to do the right thing and finally ratify the ERA. As we've seen with the recent Supreme Court decisions, women's equality is called into question again, and the ERA would write this into the Constitution permanently and protect women for generations to come. Right now, we have 35 co-sponsors in the Senate, so we have a majority of the Democratic caucus, which is a pretty high number, and we also have 2 Republicans that have joined us. But today, we hope to get additional co-sponsors with your help and your lobbying, and we do appreciate your efforts. And as Senator Cardin occasionally quotes Justice Scalia on the Supreme Court when we talk about are women protected in the Constitution, and Justice Scalia will say, well, you're not required to discriminate against women, but you're not required to protect them either. And we need to write this into the Constitution and make it clear to the courts that this discrimination can no longer be allowed. So we look forward to working with you today in your lobbying efforts and look forward to getting this done. And thank you for your participation. Thank you.
For those of you who have followed the ERA legislation since May of 2013, when Rob Andrews introduced it in the House, you know that we were nearly devastated in February when we learned that Rob Andrews was going to leave the House. And when a member leaves Congress, whatever legislation they had sponsored basically leaves with them. And we had been working so hard on that bill. We had 104 co-sponsors. And then a shero appeared out of the sunlight, Representative Jackie Speer from California. And at our first meeting with Josh Connolly, her legislative director, my first question to them was, after I said, thank you so much for taking on this legislation, do you need us to go and get the 104 co-sponsors back who are on the other bill? And their response was an incredible, we've got this. On March 27th, when the bill dropped with 110 co-sponsors on HJ Res 113. I'd like to introduce you to a young lady by the name of Molly Fishman, who has done outstanding work supporting us in getting new co-sponsors. We send her list of people that we've been tweeting about and we've been talking to, and they do incredible follow-up. We do incredible follow-up, and it has been an incredible team. So, Molly, please join me at the podium.
Well, I'm, obviously you guys know I'm not Congresswoman Speer, but I'm very excited to be here. She unfortunately had to go back for a personal conflict, but Congresswoman Speer, since her days in the State House and legislature in California, has always been a champion for women and families. She always says that if she's not going to do it, who is going to? So she's very excited to be leading this bill. We just added one more co-sponsor from Minnesota this week, so we're now up to 144, which is great. And, you know, she's never given up this fight before, so she's certainly not going to give it up now. We're excited to build that number, hopefully today. I'm going to be at the rally tomorrow as well. I'm so proud to work for a member who is so passionate about the things that I am also passionate about. I'm also happy to be here today as a product of two parents who met at Berkeley and graduated in 1969. My mom decided to do a master's and PhD, which was quite unusual, and was a clinical psychologist. Although she passed away when I was 13, she gave me a really strong foundation that was only built upon by my father, who has always encouraged me to go for whatever I'd like to. Fun example, he was there supporting me when I tried out for cheerleading, and then after being a cheerleader decided I wanted to use my soccer skills and contemplated trying out to be kicker on the football team. So no matter what I'm doing, he's always there to support me, and I know they'd both be very proud to see me working on this issue today. We really need to get the young voice engaged here, especially so many young women who do not even know we don't have an ERA. A lot of the friends I've been talking to recently don't know. And I can't think of a better person than Congresswoman Speer to help lead this fight. So thank you, guys.
Our next speaker is going to be Eileen Davis. We're now going to turn the program to let you know what's going on in the states with the Equal Rights Amendment, because the Equal Rights Amendment is one of those pieces of legislation where at the federal level, we have to remove the ratification deadline. But then at the state level, we have to get 3 more states to ratify the ERA. So right, 3 more. So it is my pleasure to introduce the woman who stood next to me and argued the benefits of the Equal Rights Amendment in front of the Virginia Senate Rules Committee, and we won by a unanimous vote coming out of Virginia Rules. We also won the vote in the Virginia Senate. And in your packets that you'll be giving out, there's a handout that's all about everything the ERA does do and what it doesn't do, because there's a lot of confusion. And because we have successfully mastered the strategy, or Eileen has basically been a leader on mastering the strategy of presenting the ERA in a winning method so that even Republicans love it. And again, remember, Alice Paul, after all, was a Republican. This was originally a Republican bill, all right? And now, unfortunately, the Republican Party isn't claiming it, and the Democratic Party isn't claiming it. So we're claiming it, and we will bring it back into both parties. All right? We will bring it back into both parties. All right. So Eileen, come on up.
What a thrill to be here today. Thank you. I'm going to talk really fast because I was told I have 5 minutes. Ha ha. If you know me, you know that's a joke. But I want to start by saying, I want to start by jumping on what Mr. Van Horn said about getting Republicans. If we don't reach a bipartisan consensus, we might as well just go over to Dubliner and order a couple of beers and forget, because we need bipartisan support. And there's plenty of fertile ground to get bipartisan support. We just have to go back and re-educate the people that are in Congress today that this started out as a Republican bill. Now, in your handout, there is a document, this document, and I gave everybody my green card, and on this card is our website. Our webmaster, Brenda, who's sitting over there, has put this document on our website with hyperlinks to everything in this document. If it references Lilly Ledbetter and you click on Lilly Ledbetter, it'll run you right over to Lilly Ledbetter. It's talking points, all the things you need to know. It's also, after I wrote this document, Candy Graham, my co-founder, and I wrote this document. After we did that, I ran this through a friend of mine who was the deputy AG to the state of Virginia, who was also argued in front of the Supreme Court, and she read it, and all of the legal arguments in here are arguably sound. And I say arguably because everybody can always argue, but these are legally sound positions on statements on what the ERA does and what the ERA doesn't. I'm quickly going to go over some of the key talking points because I realize that all of you didn't get individual copies. So just so you have an idea of what we're talking about. Number one, I want to remind you that the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced by the Republican Party. It was their bill. Alice Paul, as Andrea said, was a Republican. And it was part of the Republican platform until 1980. And Ronald Reagan removed it because Phyllis Schlafly, I know we can all boo simultaneously, she removed it because of the pressure of what we now see is, you know, the fundamentalists. They were starting up, and they removed it, and they removed it mostly based, and Ronald Reagan removed it mostly based on pressure from that faction of the party in 1980. Though he privately stated, take it for what it's worth, that he supported the Equal Rights Amendment as a concept. But, you know, deeds not words. So anyway, but then I also want to remind you that Ford and Nixon vigorously back in the 70s supported the ERA. So did their spouses. There are many photos out there of them standing on, you know, at the Democratic convention, you know, and the Republican convention rather, excuse me, with these with the ERA buttons on. There's just tremendous amount of history with the Republican Party with this bill, and we need to get that word out. We also need to remind them that they say that, well, we don't need the equal rights. So I've had people say to me, and these are all talking points that have come up from working. I mean, I'm in Virginia, okay? You want to talk about adapting to the world you're in. I'm in Virginia. So if I'm going to talk to Republicans, I've got to meet them where they live. So what I've put on this document is all of the things that they say to me and how I counter them and what I say back to them. One of the things that I've heard is they've said to me, oh, well, the Equal Rights Amendment is too simplistic. You know, they argue that, you know, a bill is too long and complicated, but when you give them a simple bill, they're like, well, it's too simple, it's too simplistic, there's too many things that are the law of unintended consequences. And I remind them that the 19th Amendment says the right to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any other state on account of sex. The Equal Rights Amendment says equality of rights shall not be denied or abridged under the United States or any other states on account of sex. It's the same amendment with a switch out of 4 words. Same amendment because both were written by Alice Paul. And when it was put in, when the right to vote was put in, the strategy at that time was that it was going to be part 1 and part 2. That we were going to get the carve out for the right to vote, which was to correct the 14th Amendment. And I gave out constitutions, and I have more constitutions, because most people only read the Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. Now, we'll tell you, well, we have the civil rights because of the 14th Amendment. No, we do not, because Section 1 says all persons, but the devil's in the details. Section 2 of the 14th Amendment says male inhabitant and male citizens 3 times. Could have said citizen, could have said inhabitant. They didn't. They said male citizen and male inhabitant in explicit intent to exclude women from its protection. And the only way to fix an amendment is with an amendment. That's why alcohol has 2 amendments, one to put it in and one to take it out. Okay, so the only way to remove the male-centric language of the 14th Amendment is with a constitutionally guaranteed gender equality amendment, which would be the Equal Rights Amendment. And what I also tell Republicans is that women love the Constitution as much as they do, and why we want to be unequivocally in it. We don't want to be inferred. We don't want to be interpreted. We want to be in it. And I also quote Scalia a lot, okay, because, you know, that's somebody that they value highly. I also quote Kelly Ayotte. And in my talking points, and I'm going to look at it because I want to make sure I read it, I give it to you accurately. Kelly Ayotte, when she was talking about why she voted against the Equal Pay Act, she said, and I quote, "The reason I voted against that specific bill is that I looked at it and there were already existing laws that needed to be enforced. My position, which I tell when I'm seeking bipartisan support, is that she's in fact correct, because the Equal Rights Amendment would add the strict judicial protection and enforcement to existing laws. She's identifying that the laws are unenforceable. I'm informing them that the reason that they're unenforceable is because of a lack of an Equal Rights Amendment." Okay? So the other thing that I wanted to go over is a couple of interesting points. They'll also bring up, they love to try and take it off into the Roe v. Wade landscape. Now, one of the things that we have been very successful in talking to Republicans about is that this is not a women's rights issue. This is not Save the Whales. We're not a niche. We are a 52% population. We are a majority of this country. So we're not some small special interest group that, you know, women's rights. And my attitude is that to be talking about choice when you're talking about, you know, we're talking about gender neutral law. If we start spinning off and talking about the genitals that make us different, that's the last part. That's the farthest from gender neutrality than you can get. And so what I say to them is that no, this is a civil rights issue. And talking about my uterus would be like talking about a man's prostate when we're talking about an economics bill. This is a civil rights and an economics bill. That's what this is. And so you really have to make sure that you stay on message and stay in the landscape of a civil rights issue, because that's what this is. And in fact, and then they'll say Roe v. Wade. And what I say about Roe v. Wade, and again, this has been legally reviewed by my very good and very competent attorney friend, the passage and ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment will have no effect on the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision. This case was decided, remember, Roe v. Wade, I always get tongue-tied on that, was decided on the right to privacy, not the right to equality. So the equality, you know, the issue of equality in the Constitution, that's not what Roe v. Wade was decided on. So it's got no relevance. It's got no relevance. Now, if we want to have a Roe v. Wade discussion, we can have that. But when we're talking about the Equal Rights Amendment, it's a civil rights issue. It is not the time and the place to be going off in the weeds about abortion, whether it should be first, whether it shouldn't be, whether they should have plans. I mean, that's an argument for another day. This is a civil rights issue. And I can't caution you strongly enough how important it is to stay in the realm of civil rights when you're talking to Republicans. Because a lot of Republican women want to support the Equal Rights Amendment. They want to. But if they believe that it's hitched to abortion, then suddenly they shut down. You really need to remind them that these are 2 separate issues. Very, very important. And ALEC, you know, and I know the ALEC people very well, because one of the things that we're dealing with in the state of Virginia, and I know my time's almost up, Andrea, I'm sorry, and I got a lot more to say, but that's okay. One of the things that we have in Virginia, which is a very interesting thing, and she talked about the Virginia Senate, we were very proud of that, and one of the women that voted for our bill in the state of Virginia was also the woman who put in the bill for the transvaginal ultrasound. She's the woman who put forth the bill for the transvaginal ultrasound that started that whole thing, that my women were the ones who spearheaded, were part of the coalition that spearheaded the big state police blow up at the Capitol. Why? Because she's the only female Republican in the Virginia Senate. So they said, oh, you put it in. So they had her do it, and she did. But anyway, this conversation got her, that woman, to vote for the Equal Rights Amendment because she was able, in her mind, to separate those two issues. And I will tell you right now, we're talking to her about being our chief sponsor in the Virginia Senate in this session. To me, will be a game changer because our sponsor, civil rights icon Senator Henry Marsh, has resigned. So we need a new sponsor this year. Well, yeah, he retired because he's like 80, what is he, like 87 years old or something? And he was around. I mean, he was the Martin Luther King of Virginia. I mean, he really, really was, and he's a wonderful man, and he gave a very impassioned speech on the floor of the Virginia Senate and said, this is the largest unfinished civil rights issue of our time. It affects 52% of the American population. 52%. And he told them there is no other bill that you people in the Virginia Senate will vote on in your, if you're from, small town Virginia, and you vote on this bill, this single vote will touch more lives than anything else you will ever do in this body. And but now he's retired, and we need a new sponsor. And we're going after a woman who sponsored the transvaginal ultrasound with the argument that we have civil rights and we have reproductive issues. And that is our argument. It is a winning argument. It's a winning argument with Republicans, and it's a winning argument with Republican women. It really, really is. So I would ask you to please stay very disciplined in your message because, and one of the things that I got a little off track, I do that, is that when we went to the legislature, now what happened to the legislature, you want to know? Well, very simply, the Speaker of our House, a man by the name of William Howe, is also on the board of ALEC. Yeah, so boom, we hit the wall. But what he said to us is he said, well, I believe in equal rights for women, and that's great. And yeah, lots of, and he said, but it's not a live bill, so I'm not wasting the legislature's body's time with a bill that's not active. Bring me an active live bill, and it'll be something that I can dock it in on the time for the floor of the Senate. So I said to him, okay, so when we bring you, the ratification deadline has been removed on the Equal Rights Amendment, you will take it to the floor of the Virginia House of Delegates because we deserve the dignity of the debate. I want you to remember that term, the dignity of the debate. Remember what we're arguing for today is to remove the ratification deadline. We're not saying that we're not asking these people today to vote on the Equal Rights Amendment. We're asking them to allow us for the dignity of that debate. That's all we want at this point in time. The debate itself is for another day, but we're asking for the dignity of the debate because right now we're in a judicial purgatory. The states are telling us, like Mr. Howell is saying, I can't do anything about that. It's not a live bill. It's current. It's been stalled for 30 years. You're bothering the court. You're bothering our legislative body with old stuff. Bring us something that's current and alive, and we'll talk about it. And then we come up here and they go, well, give us a state that's ratified. Give us a reason to lift the ratification deadline. We're like, no, it's a catch-22. So that's why we have the two-pronged strategy. I'm up here with Andrea, and I'm down there in Virginia. And we need your help to get that ratification deadline. And every state that is unratified has the same problem. Yes. That's why she's the best co-founder in the world. Congress has the right to lift the ratification deadline because indeed they already did, because it was originally 7 years and then they extended it to 10 years. I also remind Republicans that it was our own Democrat, Sam Erwin. It was our own Democrat, Sam Erwin, who killed the Equal Rights Amendment because he put the poison pill ratification deadline on it. It didn't have it. And the Madison Amendment didn't have it. The Madison Amendment didn't know. There is no constitutional it's very loosey-goosey whether or not a deadline should be applied to any amendment, and there's no rhyme or reason why we got one that hobbled us in 10 years. When the Madison Amendment was amended in 1992, and it's so named because James Madison had put it in over 200 years earlier. So there's plenty of precedent for us to ask for this. It's doable, and that's what we want. We want the dignity of the debate. We want them to remove the deadline. We want the states like Virginia and North Carolina and Illinois, we want them to have a reason above and beyond that it's the right thing to do. We want them to know that we have states that are ready to go and tell them that Illinois is poised. Well, Illinois is extremely close. And when Illinois pops, that's just going to make it that much better for me to go back into Virginia and say, look, Virginia, Illinois just popped. Are you going to be the next state, or are you going to drop the ball? So if you're not involved with the fight in Illinois, please get involved in the fight in Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Our next speaker has been working on the Equal Rights Amendment in a state to the south of Virginia. So I bring up our dear Sandy Ostrike, known to everybody as Sandy O, to talk about what she's going to be doing in the next legislative session in Florida.
Thank you, Andrea. Yay. Is this on? Is this on? No, it's not on. Okay, okay. Hello, friends. Are y'all pumped up? Okay. There are cards. I am Sandy Ostrike, and I have been spearheading the lobbying in Florida for 14 years. We're 2/3 Republican, and that's why. And we also help mentor the unratified states, sending them our past talks and so forth, and money and handouts and stuff like that. And we also mentor, or shepherd rather, the 2 bills that I helped co-create with 3 other state leaders several years ago. It's been changed since, but it was, in fact, the brilliant idea of Carolyn Cook, who isn't right here, with U4E, United for Equality. We wrote it all together. I am a former elected official and hold a professor emerita, and I don't know how that all happened. It's just been one foot in front of the other. Now it's ERA or die. I work with thousands of female and male supporters of our National Equal Rights Amendment Alliance for 14 solid years, with bills each year. Every single year, bills in both houses. And again, what happens is that Florida is tied into ALEC, which is supported by the trillionaires Koch brothers, KOCH. And ALEC, just for those who don't know, does anybody here not know what ALEC is? Okay, quickly. ALEC is a conglomerate of all the major corporations in America who pool their money into ALEC and buy legislators in each state so that they will file the bills that the corporations write. That's why you see the same model bills in many states. So we're up against a real rock and a hard place. It's harder and crueler this time. First time around, it was all jolly and everybody had money. I raised money out of my home garden sales. Only way I can get it. Grantors tell me, I write many grant applications, they tell me ERA is contentious. Well, yeah, in America, dissent is honored. So anyway, we move on. And we don't have any money, but we do the best we can. So we're running Florida, and in Florida, in the bills in both houses, the Senate committees have passed it twice, overwhelmingly. It's the House that drags its feet. And so here I am today, and of course we're going to again file bills, our same people, and all of the Democrats co-sponsor our bill in Florida. Maybe 1 or 2 I can't bump into somehow. But we always get 2 or 3 Republicans. And in the past, we've had male Republicans sponsor our bill. The next year, he was out, taken to the woodshed, as they call it in Florida. He lost his committees, he lost his job, he was out. So it's dangerous in Florida to show up for the ERA, but I do have this year 2 Republicans doing it. Our own co-created Senate bill, SJR 15 and HJR 113, as I say, we did fight many long hours, probably longer than it took to file the bill, to get it just right, and now it's a little bit changed. We need all of you pitching in. I don't mean just coming to conferences and yay, and going home and forgetting it. I mean, for instance, there are cards out there like this, and if you haven't got one, and there's another card, a green one, that you also need. and probably others, but you should have found them on your seat. If you haven't, they're right up front here, the corner seat. But what we do is every year, we don't stop. We are year-round, 18 hours a day, every day, all day for ERA. I don't brush my teeth some days until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and sometimes worse than that. And my husband, he still loves me. I can't believe it after all these years and all this turmoil, because I've never sat back. I have made the Florida legislature do several things prior to this. One was, I'm also a nurse practitioner, making sure that nurse practitioners who deliver babies, midwives, actually have training. They used to have 3 years of attendance where they would do a few babies, and that was it. Now they have to live up to standards. I kept fluoridation out of our waters in our county for 9 years, and you can talk to me about that. It is a waste product that it's expensive to discard, so they put it in your water. I have the memo to that from Alcoa from years ago. The big thing was I also raised up our St. Petersburg area in terms of, what was it now? Oh, yes, the hospitals in Florida all joined together with a Catholic hospital, I'm sorry to say, and they were not performing any kind of reproductive rights or end-of-life help. So I got the ACLU and a couple of other national organizations together, and we made sure, we filed lawsuits, and we made sure, and I even have the Catholic Church's amendment to this, and eventually what happened was the consortium of 10 hospitals, then under the umbrella of a religious edict, gave way, and they said, we will never be naughty again. So we have abortions and contraception and end of life in Florida now. So I don't give up. I brought the library in Florida to interlibrary loan. We didn't have interlibrary loans, and I write internationally distributed pharmacology texts, and I was lost coming from New York. So we got that now. ERA has been waiting patiently for 91 years. No bill in Florida has ever had as many co-sponsors as our bill and not been heard by the House. Okay, so there's something evil going on here, and it's ALEC. It's ALEC, ladies. So we have a hard row uphill, but we will do it. We will do it by ousting. They're all, the members, legislative members are all all Republicans, by the way. You go to alecexposed.org, click on your state, and you will see your familiar names of your Republican legislators there who do the bidding of the corporate interests. They must do it. We've waited 91 years. We all deserve the democracy we were promised now. The Equal Rights Amendment simply provides male and female alike gender equal treatment ordered up by the U.S. Constitution. That's all it does. It's all it does. It's a standard by which we can sue with greater standing. I mentioned strict scrutiny previously. We want to belong to the Constitution. Women do belong in that contract. I talked to, all this is lawyered up. Contract lawyers have told me this is correct. Men are mentioned 39 times. We're mentioned once, the right to vote. So we don't have the contractual obligation for equal treatment. And we're calling it equal treatment rather than equality because legislators tend to blow it off and say, well, define equal for me. Well, that's an abstract, that's pretty hard. But equal treatment, no, we got a list of that. Okay, and it would make it a violation of the U.S. Constitution because nothing else works. Don't let them talk you into it. Nothing else works. The Equal Pay Act was passed in 1964, And why are we still making only 77 cents on average around the country, we women? Same job, same hours, same credentials. So they don't work, laws. The Constitution is the law of the land. We got to do it. We got to do that. And the rest of us had been fighting. I marched the first time around when it went down by just 3 states, and we're still working on it. But we've got to work harder. We've got to work smarter. And the big thing is we've got to work together. Do not let us get into the interactions, the egos, the, well, I did it first, or I do it better, or I'm here now and I'm new and I know everything. Okay, we've got to work together. My website has all the information you'll need. It's not a fancy website, but it's like 16 pages long. But you do have there many, after 14 years and many legal ramifications, fought over, we do have all of our buttons at the top. You don't have to go somewhere and look on the side. It's right at the top, and it's facts for legislators. There is the answer to probably, very likely, every question you'll ever be asked. So our website is 2passera.org, and it's on the card. If you don't have a card, come get one. 2passera.org has facts for legislators, everything, all documented, all available. There are talking points, and I will get into a couple of those, as well as new ones you haven't maybe come to yet, but we're appealing to the economic growth of the nation when women are unleashed and can break the glass ceiling, for example. Okay, so there's a lot there. There's ERA for women at the top. There's an ERA for men too, yes, because they do experience sex discrimination. But ERA for women has a list of all the things that we do not have. We are denied because we don't have an Equal Rights Amendment. It's pretty unique. I don't see it anywhere. Andrea seems to have a list. It's probably better than that, but so it's ERA for women, ERA for men, but it makes sex discrimination a violation of the Constitution, men and women, and we do fight for men as well. So we must go and work this out, and we must work together. Keep your eyes on the prize. It's the ERA. It's the ERA. It's not our own little territorial. That's the problem I'm finding with my 326 major organizations, that they are too territorial. And so it should be endorsed, it should be supported, it should be passed. There's no earthly reason to deny equal treatment for more than half the citizenry. Yes, men too, but women get more sex discrimination. There's no reason to stall it. There is none. ERA, here's an argument for you that's not been said yet exactly. ERA could boost the U.S. economy as it has in some other countries. Many other nations have ERA language. ERA could increase the gross domestic product of this country as it has in other countries that the U.S. made to pass an ERA in those nations and not here, boosted their GDP by 9%. Okay, not up to 9%. ERA increases tax revenues, court costs, it lowers court costs, reduces costs of Medicaid, public assistance, food stamps. Listen to this. Studies show wherever equality is the standard, and it will filter down from a constitutional amendment to the bedroom and other places. Wherever equality is the standard, marital harmony increases, and I've got 3 studies research to show. Okay, and divorces are decreased. Okay, and there's a new research out showing that women are going to vote differently from ever before. Ladies and gentlemen, women's hair is on fire, and some men's. I say women are voting smarter. Women can do anything. The women's revolution has begun. We demand. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, my card's up here.
All right, it looks like the Minnesota delegation is just now starting to come in. All right, here they come, here they come. Marina, I'd like just a really, really short summary from you on North Carolina. I'm looking for you. Where's Marina? Is Marina's? Oh, there she is. She's got to put her, we can't see your feet, Marina. You can run up. Run on up here.
I'm going to help you out here. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank Kathy and Tammy and Andrea. Fabulous work, fabulous work. Thank you. And also, the ultimate feminist, my husband is in back, and he has helped me so much, and I appreciate that. So, okay. North Carolina House of Representatives voted to ratify the ERA on February the 9th, 1977, with a tally of 61 to 55. However, the Senate failed to ratify it, and it has never been introduced into the North Carolina General Assembly, the NCGA, since. So let's do something about that, okay? When we go to talk to our legislators, and I encourage you to do the same, I'm going to start carrying the Constitution with me with the names of the women who want to be put into it. And I do think we need to start getting visual and start helping them to understand we're not there, but we're coming. Okay. Presently, there are 2 ERA groups recognized as actively working towards its possible introduction into the NCGA as early as 2015. One of the groups is headed by myself. It's NC for ERA. It's a communications network for ERA supporters, and we're involved in promoting the citizen lobbying efforts advocating for the ERA. We use multiple strategies. Ratify ERA-NC is co-chaired by Roberta Madden out of Black Mountain, North Carolina, and Nancy Glowacki, so you'll be hearing their names. She's from Hendersonville. Their group networks and lobbies the members of Congress as well, their state legislators, to ratify the ERA using the 3-state. Briefly, here are our efforts. I'm going to give you the most recent things that we've done or looking at doing. In August, Ratify ERA-NC led a statewide conference. The ERA is alive and kicking. So that was great. And in October, NC for ERA, that's us, with co-presenter Asheville Now, will lead a statewide presentation at the NC Now annual conference titled, "The ERA, What's a Nice Amendment Like You Doing in a Battleground State Like This?" And how many of you are now members as well? Good. Asheville Now will be sharing an ERA communications strategy where the ERA is at the center of their chapter plan. They have one focus. All else is informed by the ERA using a specifically created problem solution model. So that's going to be a fascinating model to take a look at for coming out of Now. Greatly looking forward to hearing from them. I'm going to give you just a real quick update as to where we are legislatively. Senator Kay Hagan notified NC for ERA in June of 2013 that she was signing on as a co-sponsor of SJ Res 15. Woohoo! We got. Senator Richard Burr, however, has not signed on with any of the ERA measures, so we're working with Senator Burr's office. We're going to be working with him heavily soon. Okay. At the U.S. House level, we have 13 congressional members, 2 of whom who are currently active with the ERA legislation. Hats off to Congressman G.K. Butterfield, District 1. He does co-sponsor H.J. Res 56. Active constituents will be contacting him regarding sponsorship of H.J. Res 113. We need you there, too. We need you. Congressman David Price, District 4, co-sponsors both H.J. Res 113 and 56, so that's good for us. Congressman Mel Watt, you may know his name for another reason. District 12 co-sponsored H.J. Res 56, and we believe also H.J. Res 43, the predecessor of 113, am I saying that right? This district is vacant now as Mr. Watt now serves as the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. However, State House Representative Alma Adams is running for his seat, and we are anticipating that she will co-sponsor ER measures if she is elected. So, Congressman Patrick McHenry, District 1, continues to be contacted by our active constituents. Introducing the ERA into the NCGA. Don't try this at home, boys and girls. No, try this at home, boys and girls. Okay. In August, both active groups for the ERA began really focusing, and joint networking efforts to consider introducing the ERA into this battleground state with the nation watching. Ratified ERA NC's Roberta Madden is in discussions with the House Minority Whip, who is a strong ERA supporter. Okay. NC for ERAs, myself, is also in discussions with her Senate and State House representatives as a constituent. Both groups will continue our efforts to strategize and organize our constituents to contact the representatives at every level to support removing these hideous deadlines, what were we thinking, and advocate for ratifying the ERA. And following the elections, we're going to start really intensively contacting every new office holder in hopes of moving the ERA forward together in 2015. And thank you for the support from the other states who've been mentoring us. Thank you.
All right, now, in probably less than 2 minutes, I'm going to sum up what's going on in the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois has successfully passed ratification of the ERA in the Illinois Senate, and they have passed it through the Illinois House Judiciary. They will be going for the full floor vote in the House during the veto session, which will begin in November. And yes. So in Illinois, we're being led by Jeannie DeRay, who is our PDA issue team coordinator. And we are anticipating the need for all hands on deck in Illinois when that ratification vote gets announced. Because as you know, Illinois is the home of Phyllis Schlafly, who is still alive, amazingly enough, and kicking. So this is going to be a fight, but this is a fight that we can win. They have been working, getting legislators on the bill. We actually are utilizing professional lobbyists in Illinois, because when it was originally defeated in Illinois, one of the things that the people realized was we really didn't have the power to really combat all the different arguments. So that will not be the case now. I will plan on going to Illinois along with Tammy and Kathy, Eileen, and Candy, and we will be bringing in all the people who have argued in the states and in Congress to back up the 14 paid lobbyists that are working for the ERA in Illinois. So that's Illinois. Now, Arizona will introduce the ERA again in 2015, and Nevada is going to introduce the ERA. They already have their sponsors in both the House and the Senate. They are working to make sure they elect some new legislators in the Assembly, and they are really working strong and going for passage of the ERA, and they hope to be the second state to pass the ERA. So that's what's going on. Well, all right, well, see, now we've got a fight between Florida and Virginia and North Carolina and Nevada, all right, and Arizona. So, but remember all those years when we didn't really have anybody really doing a lot of work in a lot of states all at once. You had those stalwart states that always put in the bills, but now other states are starting to push, and we are bound to break through. Yeah, we are moving forward. We are moving forward. Welcome, Minnesota delegation. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. Minnesota is in the house after a very long bus ride. Welcome, Minnesota. Come on down, come on down. Come on down. I'm going to have Mike Hirsch come on down. Mike Hirsch works with me at PDA. He's our communications coordinator. And what people may not know about Mike Hirsch is Mike is an executive vice president for Maryland Now. So Mike is a very serious feminist. Come on down, Mike.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you, everybody. And I'm proud to be a feminist. I'm proud to say I'm a feminist. I think all that, you know, any reasonable person, I think, should be a feminist. So how many proud feminists are here with me today? Who's here to work for some equality today? Thank you so much. I just want to thank everybody again for being here. I want to thank my own Senator Ben Cardin. When we first came here a couple years ago to the Senate buildings, we did not have a Senate sponsor. We had a series of House sponsors, and we were having trouble getting things going. And people would say to us, you know, the ERA is not really going anywhere. You don't even have a Senate sponsor. And we thought, well, you know, that's a reasonable objection to make. So we came around and we looked to find who would be a really good sponsor. And we settled on Ben Cardin because Ben Cardin's a courageous leader. He's stood up for freedom and equality, and he's just a real hardworking, common sense senator. And we went in and made the case, and we had to get by a very tough assistant, Bill Van Horn, who said, I want to make sure that this makes sense, and you have to make the case to me. And we knew that this was a serious thing, because often you'll get people, we went to other Senate offices, and they said, yeah, we'll be happy to sign on to it if you can get a sponsor. And the idea was there would be no lead sponsor on it. So that was real tough. We were kind of like, you know, chicken and the egg sort of situation. So we went and met with Bill, and he asked all the right questions, and he grilled us, and he made sure that we had our thinking correct, because he knew that, sure, we could put a resolution in, but if it wasn't fundamentally sound, if it wasn't persuasive, and if we didn't have our legal doctrine explained clearly, that it wouldn't do any good. And one thing that you know about the office of Senator Ben Cardin, they are serious legislators. They take the job very seriously. Ben Cardin came up all the way through the system in Maryland, in my state of Maryland. I'm very proud of him. And he's been a committed legislator on the state level and all the way up, and in the House and now in the Senate. So we knew we had the right sponsor, and the right sponsor makes all the difference. So for a couple of years ago, we were looking for even one sponsor. Now, thanks to Bill and the hard work he's done in Ben Cardin's office and the work on the Senate side, we have how many co-sponsors in the Senate? 35 co-sponsors. That's a pretty amazing number. It's and that's a testimony to all the hard work that the people in this room have done, because we've been doing this, unlike some organizations who will have a lobby day. They'll come in, walk around once a year, and maybe get a co-sponsor or two, and then say, hey, we saw some monuments and we saw some people. We've been working this day in and day out, and with Andrea and Kathy and Tammy leading the way, but with all the hard work of everybody in this room. We've just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. We've had calls, we've had meetings in our states. We've lined up people on the state legislature level. And this is very, very important. And I think it's very important to know that we've had a male lead sponsor in the House. Now we have a male lead sponsor in the Senate, because the ERA is not just for women. The ERA is for all of America. And I'm supposed to talk about why the ERA guarantees true equality. This is a fact, okay? Inequality for anyone, any one group undermines equality for everybody. If anyone is suffering from inequality and discrimination, that hurts everybody. And I can put this very clearly for men. If you're a qualified male applicant for a job, and you're going in the hiring process, and the job market is better than it's been. It's a lot better than it was under President Bush, but it still has ways to go. You're there trying to get a good job. The employer looks at you and says, well, you're very qualified, but we have a woman who's also qualified, but you know what? We can pay her less. So either you accept less as a male, or we don't need you. That's a way that by dividing the job market between men and women, it hurts men and women. And it hurts our economy, and it hinders our prosperity. And I was just reading an article yesterday to underscore this. A woman who has completed her degree, has gotten a college degree, earns less over her working life than a man who has not completed his degree. So, you know, you're talking about women who have better academic and employment credentials earning less than men who have inferior credentials. That's a problem. That's a big problem. That's a problem for our economy. That's a problem for our ability to innovate. So inequality hurts. It's also very important to realize that the Equal Rights Amendment could be called the Economic Rights Amendment, because as long as men and women are treated unequally, our economy suffers, and the economic rights of women and their families, which include male children and female children alike, includes husbands who are part of that household, their economic security and their prosperity will be undermined. It's a very simple thing. If we are divided against each other, we will not be prosperous. You know, Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Well, the American household today cannot be stable. We cannot prosper together. We cannot have the household stability that we need to move forward as a country if we're divided men versus women. It's just, economically, it's unsound. Ethically, it's wrong. Philosophically, it makes no sense. All the old arguments that said, oh, women will get into combat, we don't want that. It's being done. Extraneous issues that had nothing to do with the ERA, to do with gay marriage and marriage equality, it's being done. It has nothing to do with the ERA. Abortion rights. Abortion rights are on the front line. We're fighting for those every single day. Reproductive rights and all these other different rights. Those are special rights that women deserve, and they should be fought for, but that has nothing to do with the Equal Rights Amendment. All these arguments that Phyllis Schlafly, people mention Phyllis Schlafly, everything that she predicted that would happen if we passed the ERA happened anyway, so we might as well just pass the ERA. What do you think? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. All right, I want to welcome our next speaker, Diana Danis. Oh, Mike, I may need you up here. I need you to get the other microphone working. You're good? Oh, and you're near Mike.
Well, everybody looks great. And from now on, everybody that comes to one of these things has to bring a 30-year-old with them. That's the deal. No, I brought mine. No, you brought one. So here's the thing. I'm really pissed. I'm tired. I want to go fishing. And instead, I'm fighting for crap that I thought we had under control 40 years ago. And I'm not happy about it. I was talking to Paula Kaplan this morning, and I said, you know, this really offends me. My mom, I have pictures of her with Bella Abzug and Gloria Steinem and Ann Richards and Barbara Jordan. And guess what? Everybody but Gloria's dead. And all of them died without the benefit of equal rights. That's not okay. I'm emotional about this. I'm emotional because, and I'll stand before you and say this, I am, besides being a midget, I am a Hispanic, Native American, Jewish, disabled, Vietnam, female veteran. I know I'm being discriminated against. I just never know what for. And this is the thing. And I want people to get clear about this. We were not invited to the table. I can't tell you how incredibly happy I am. that PDA and ERA Action and We Are Women invited us to have a place on the platform. We believe it's critical, because I'm telling you, thousands of military and civilian women have died since the Revolutionary War in service to this nation, honorably, without the benefit of equal rights. Corporations have more constitutional rights than we have. I am offended by this. I am offended that tomorrow morning we are going to be reading the names of nearly 200 women who have died in service to this country, in combat, in foreign lands, who have fewer benefits than corporations, who do not have constitutional equality. It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. I also want to tell you about how I believe the Equal Rights Amendment will benefit and change the military. We now purportedly have access as women to every field in the military: combat arms, infantry, artillery. And this is what I can tell you about that. They still restrict it. They can say they're all open. But when a man goes into infantry training as an officer, he gets every shot he wants. He fails, he can go back. He fails again, he can go back. If a woman officer wishes to engage in the infantry as an officer, she gets one shot. One shot. And the vast majority of all people who go through these very, very serious and difficult trainings don't make it through the first time around. But if a woman fails the first time, it's forever. What is wrong with this picture? This is not okay. And I will also tell you that when we look, and this is theoretical, because I don't know, none of us in this room know exactly how the ERA is going to impact other laws, other accesses, equal pay, the skills, knowledge, and abilities to get out there and get into, and I call it a platinum ceiling. It's not a glass ceiling. We need a frickin' drill press to get through it. We do not have access to the upper realm. If we did, we wouldn't be playing this game of, oh, look at the women in the boardroom. It's like, really? If we're still playing first on the front page of newspapers, every time a woman does something that hasn't happened before, not because she didn't want to, because they wouldn't allow her, as long as we're doing first, every time we turn around, we are not even close to where we need to be on this. We are not even close. And I want you to know that I believe in my heart of hearts that the military can drive cultural change in this country. If we have the Equal Rights Amendment, then we have constitutional equality, which means constitutional equal responsibility, which means you want to draft people, you draft everybody. And the old arguments, I hate that Phyllis Schlafly is getting airtime. But the old arguments of, oh, well, you know, men will want to take care of women if they're in combat, if they're in those positions. Really, we have a greater chance of being raped and killed in a war zone by our own troops or our own contractors than we do of getting injured or killed in warfare. That is bullshit, and I am not going to phrase it any other way. I will also tell you, the vast majority of people who serve this country in uniform, all of whom since Vietnam have been volunteers. The vast majority of these are honorable, skilled, caring people who are patriotic and have a desire to protect and defend this nation. We cannot paint them with the same broad brush of, oh, well, we have a problem in the military. We have a problem in society. And if we had equality, I don't believe we would have this problem, because we are talking about privilege and entitlement, allowing people to take what they want because they think they deserve it, which means that instead of us looking at things and saying, oh, this is how the military uses it, it's called unwanted sexual contact. Like, really? I thought it was a felony. And we don't treat it that way. If rape is, in fact, the next thing worse that you can do to a person than killing them, then why aren't we putting these assholes in prison? Passage of the ERA, to me, looks like a few things. It looks like if you have constitutional equality, now we don't have to fight for an Equal Pay Act. We have a place where we can sue when people don't play games fairly, when they don't create a level playing field. And by the way, when we talk about inequality of income, we talk about access to full-time, let's see how they do it in labor, full-time, permanent, gainful, upwardly mobile employment that is secure and long-term. Well, good for us, because that's not working real well. Most of the people in this country that are in minimum wage jobs are women with children. So when you look at an equality paradigm, you have to say, by the way, if you're a white woman, it's 77 cents. If you are a black woman or a brown woman or purple, it doesn't really matter. They pretty much, the darker you get, the worse your pay is. Okay? We are not looking at that. And the further south you go and the parameters of your environment, what are your regional specifics? What jobs are available? So if you go in and you are a disabled black woman, you're pretty much screwed. In Mississippi, you're 54 cents to the dollar or less. This is not okay. When we talk about 77 cents on the dollar, let's use that as our baseline. That means if you are a standard straight couple, you're going to lose an eighth of your income over your lifetime if you manage to stay together. If you're a gay couple and you're female, you're going to lose a quarter of your income over your lifetime. The only ones that come out good with this are the gay guys, and I know they dress really nicely and decorate well, but this is not cool. We need access. We need equal opportunity, and we need equal pay. And we need the Equal Rights Amendment to get there. If the military can drive this, if people get in there and you talk to your folks, especially when you're talking to GOP, talk to them about the military. 57% of our freaking budget goes to the military. Let's allow that to drive these changes. We drove it with racism. We drove it with, when we desegregated the military in 1948, nobody else wanted to play. That was important. It also drove getting out there and getting the civil rights movement really moving. As soon as they overturned Don't Ask, Don't Tell, every single state started moving on gay marriage. You should be able to get married if you want to. You should also have to deal with the divorce thing and losing half your stuff. But you should have the opportunity to do that. It shouldn't be anybody else's business. And the military drove that. They can drive this, and that means they can drive the cultural change that requires that we no longer accept sexual harassment, sexual assault, and rape as a given. We function under this as women from cradle to grave. Now, I know that half of the rapes in the military, by the numbers, are men, not by the percentages, but by the numbers are men. And they are not getting a fair shake. And I'm telling you, it's a difficult situation for them. It is not worse that they get raped. It is bad. It is bad when you get raped. Period. It's bad. We're not handling it. You want to do a better job when they say, and you're seeing this on the news, please use this argument against people, when they say maybe young women shouldn't go in the military if this is so dangerous. Well, guess what? 57% of our college campuses are populated by young women. Their rape rate is higher than the military. And Title IX is not protecting them. So let's get real about what we have to do here, and we need to work together. You need us. We need you. The civilians and military and veterans need one another. We are a small population. We are a small population, but we're powerful, and we're passionate, and we're caring, and we're concerned, and we're in all of your families somewhere. Somewhere there are veterans. Somewhere there are military people. Please talk to them about how important it is that they give us an equal shot. If we do not have a place at the table, and that means the Joint Chiefs, you get there through the combat arms. which we just now got access to. You get there through combat arms. If we don't have a seat at the table, we cannot control what they do. We cannot control where they go. So we need to get on board with Mariska Hargitay and the rape kit processing. 500,000 rape kits unprocessed around the country. So if a bank gets robbed of $20, they still spend $30,000 processing the scene to find those criminals because it's money. 500,000 rape kits not tested, and we know most predators are serial predators. Why aren't we DNA testing with the military database? Why aren't we making them and forcing them to process every one of these kits and get rid of these predators? Because I'm telling you, if you get raped and you don't get the support and you have retaliation, and this is public or private sector, your life changes forever. Your ability to fully engage changes forever. We can't let people walk who think it's okay to commit felonies and treat it like a joke on Facebook. We have to stop this. The military can drive this. We need them on board, and there are some damn quality people. Russell Strand, incredible man, just spoke before the War College. We cannot train rape out of the military, but we can certainly lead it out of the military, and we can do it with an eye on equality. And we can do it across this country. Please, please, please engage with the military, with the men and women who give honorable service to the country, who put their lives on the line. Engage with them to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. Republicans love to walk up to veterans and put their arm around them and wave that flag, but they haven't passed a single bill, not a single bill benefiting veterans. We need to tell them that equal rights means if you're going to go and touch us, you had better do it with equality. We'll see you tomorrow.
Some incredible speakers this morning. We are running a little bit late, so we've got 2 more speakers. Paula, are you here? Oh, there you are, right behind me, right behind me. So welcome, Paula.
Hi, my name is Paula Kaplan, and I've been a raving feminist for about 4.5, I started to say centuries, decades, feels longer.
Feels like centuries.
Yeah. I'm a feminist activist, and I'm a psychologist. I'm based at Harvard in the Du Bois Institute. We are here today because in a sexist society, anything that can be used against women will be used against women. Now, you heard Eileen ask the rhetorical question, why is it that other constitutional amendments have not had a deadline, but the ERA has? Why, she said, have we been hobbled by this? Well, there you go. In a sexist society, anything that can be used against women will be used against women. This is not about abstract principles. It's about the daily, visceral experiences of sexism. Let me mention just a few very quickly. There are women who cannot be here with us today because their husbands would punish or even beat them for coming to an event like this. There are women who cannot be here today because getting unequal pay, getting low pay, they are trying to support their families as the sole financial support. There are women who cannot be here today because the whole burden of caregiving is placed on them. There are women who cannot be here today because in civilian society or in military life, they were raped, that upset them. The upset was diagnosed as a mental illness. They saw their perpetrators go unpunished, and because they were diagnosed as mentally ill, they have lost their human rights. They're too demoralized to come. There are women who, through sexist uses of psychological and psychiatric theory and practice, have lost custody of their children in the courts, and there's no recourse. They are too demoralized to move. There are mothers who, with paid work hard at a double shift at least. And when they try to ask for all of these wonderful workplace changes that we hear a lot about, working from home, part-time work, job sharing, they get punished in major ways and in sometimes very subtle ways that you can't really bring a complaint or a lawsuit about because they're too subtle. Now, in the second wave, of the women's movement, which I have been part of, sexism and its consequences, well, we were raised just to feel that that was part of being a woman. There was no term when I was a young girl for sexual harassment. It was, I'm uncomfortable, but I got to figure out how to deal with that. With consciousness raising and with political action and people saying the personal is political, women came to discover as individuals, oh, it's not just me. There are epidemics of wife battering, of child sexual abuse, of what we call harassment now at work, unequal treatment in various ways, low pay, not being able, when I was a young woman, to get into law school if you were a woman, or medical school. Systemic sexism was what became so clear in the second wave. Well, the historical perspective is really important because women who are younger than my generation, I'm 67, grew up hearing about the women's movement, and they thought there was no, certainly not platinum, even glass ceiling anymore. And they said, well, I'm not a feminist, but. And they thought they had their rights. Many of those young women are angrier today and more determined today than to do something about it than even we were, because they grew up expecting to have equality. They thought it was already there. We did a study through Harvard called Voices of Diversity on 4 different college campuses. We looked at sexism and racism on those campuses. We asked the students, women and men of color, and a few white women and men, what happens on this campus, on your campus? We asked them in private interviews. And one of the things we asked them was, have you ever been the target of violence or harassment based on your sex? Or have you seen anybody else who was? And the same thing about based on race. And it was more frequent to hear that, yes, they had been the target or they knew someone who'd been the target of sex-based harassment or violence, especially violence, than race-based. I'm certainly not saying there's no racism on campus, but I'm telling you people were aware that they were more likely to report that they were aware of sex-based harassment and violence than race-based. And then we asked them, how do you feel when that happens in each case, sex-based and race-based? And what they said was that it's more serious when it's race-based. And they used terms like, you know, the sex-based stuff, that's just human nature. Well, we're here to say, no, it's not, and it has to change. One of the things that we heard about from these students that won't surprise you is that since some laws were passed that were supposed to give women equal rights, and since there have been some social changes that in some circles make it a little less acceptable to tell sexist jokes, unless they're about mothers, and then you can get away with it. But although there have been some of those changes, of course, sexism and its manifestations have not vanished, but many of them have become more subtle. So they're more microaggressions. So young women are tormented because somebody does something and it makes them feel awful, and they're asking themselves, am I being overly sensitive? Am I just too dependent, you know, like women are? Am I just imagining that it's because I'm a woman? And if I try to talk about it, they'll say I don't have a sense of humor. They'll say that I'm just being overly emotional. So that's been a major change. Young women need our support as they go through these experiences of microaggression. The history of women's and girls' rights has been a history of backlash. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And then, very recently, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back with the war on women. Now, if you look at the legislation that's in place, we've got, just to go through it real quickly, we've got the Equal Pay Act, we've got Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, prohibiting employment discrimination based on sex, supposedly, Title IX, which many people just think is about equal rights in sports. No, it's supposed to be equal rights in education across the board. We've got the Fair Housing Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Family and Medical Leave Act, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. Okay, we've got all of those. So why do we need the ERA? It's because these various bits of legislation are like trying to make a patchwork quilt, and the patches keep falling off, and we haven't had enough to finish the quilt so that it will really protect us and keep us warm. How does that happen? How does this legislation not work sufficiently? Well, it's because we don't have a constitutional amendment. I'm not a lawyer, but here's what Maryam Aranjani, who's a professor of law, explained to me. When the Supreme Court has to decide whether something has been discriminatory based on sex, they apply a standard called intermediate scrutiny. They are allowed to go ahead and say, no, the law can stand even though it's discriminatory, if there's a compelling government interest in this law. Now, intermediate scrutiny means they don't have to look very hard at whether or not there's discrimination. What kind of scrutiny would a constitutional amendment allow? It would provide for strict scrutiny. It's a much, much more powerful kind of scrutiny. Guess what? Right now, there is strict scrutiny required for discriminatory laws based on race, religion, and national origin. You hear what's missing? On the basis of sex. As long as there is structured inequality, structural inequality, systemic inequality, like you've been hearing about this morning, that makes it much more likely for there to be violence against the discriminated group. And of course, that's exactly what's happening. You just heard Diana talk about it very eloquently. If we said, well, let's just have a law here and there against slavery, we didn't need a constitutional amendment. When you talk about it from the standpoint of race, it's for some reason much easier for people to see, well, of course we needed a constitutional amendment. We need to apply that kind of consciousness raising to thinking about discrimination based on sex. Now, when my kids were little, I had heard, be careful because whatever your politics are, you know what your kids are likely to do. They'll rebel and go the opposite way. So when my kids were little, I was really careful not to mention words like feminist or sexist in the house. And one night at dinner time, the phone rang, and I answered it, and the kids were there, and I wasn't thinking, and I guess I used the word feminist because when I hung up, my kids, Jeremy and Emily, who were probably about 7 and 5 at the time, said, "What's feminist mean?" And I thought, oh gosh, I've got to say this right because otherwise they'll go the opposite way. They didn't, thank goodness. But so I thought, okay, please let me figure out how to say this. And I remember saying to them, they both have big brown eyes. I remember saying to them, well, a feminist is somebody who thinks that nobody should be able to say to you, you can or can't do something because you're a girl or a boy, or you should or should not do something because you're a girl or a boy. And these 4 big brown eyes opened wide, and they said, you mean some people don't think that? So you're never too young to get it. So in closing, I want to thank the people who organized today, Andrea and Tammy and Kathy and Mike and all of the other people who worked on this, and the people who've organized tomorrow's wonderful rally, Jacqueline and We Are Women and PDA. because the historical perspective that you've heard presented today is essential. The women's movement quieted down for a while. And as I've been telling people and posting on Facebook for the last few weeks about today and tomorrow, people have said, oh, I thought that was all over with. It is so heartening as a second wave feminist to stand here and see all of you in this room today and to know that tomorrow is going to happen. So you know that Martin Luther King Jr. said, the arc of justice is, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. So today, tomorrow, and onward, we are to make sure that this is true for all girls and boys, for all women and men who care about justice and who thrive on equality. And I want to end by quoting, I wish somebody had recorded it, they didn't, years ago in Toronto, the great Flo Kennedy, feminist lawyer, activist, said something like this. She was giving a talk and she said, must have been in the late 80s, and she said, oh, I hear women talking all the time these days about, I'm so burned out, I'm so burned out. And then, as only Flo Kennedy could do, she looked at the audience and she said, nobody ever told us it was going to be fast, and nobody ever told us it was going to be easy, but it matters. And for the sake of our mothers and our sisters and our daughters and all the women and men to come, we cannot burn out. So thanks to all of you for coming, and let's go get them.
Our last speaker, before we get ready and go to work, is the Honorable Betty Folliard, all the way from Minnesota to join us.
Okay, I'm going to start with, will the Minnesota delegation please stand up? Woo! Oh my God, you're beautiful. You're so beautiful. Oh my God, I can't stand it. If you have ever, stay standing, if you have ever been sexually assaulted, will you please stand up with them? If you've ever been sexually assaulted, stand up. If you have ever been discriminated on the basis of sex in the workplace, stand up. If you know anybody who has ever been discriminated against on the basis of sex, stand up. Now look, we got a room standing. Who am I missing? Gentlemen, stand up. All right, you can sit down now. I am Betty Folliard, and I am so honored to be here today. This is so exciting. Thank you for asking me to speak. Let me just begin by saying that this began with the Minnesota Economic Security Act this year. A group of folks came together back in the fall, and Gender Justice was a part of the conversation. I'm the board chair of Gender Justice, about what can we do this coming legislative session to improve women's workplace issues. And they put together a package. They ended up passing 9 out of the 15 pieces through our legislature, and Minnesota became the first in the nation on workplace discrimination issues. And it's everything. And it's everything, you know, it's pay gap stuff, it's breastfeeding, it's discrimination against pregnant women, it's all kinds of pieces, it's older women having a security net, it's a whole lot of things. And take a look at that, because I want to make sure that we're sharing a lot of things. I'm told there are 31 different states here today in this room. And I want to say, first of all, I want to share that, but then I said, how can I help to amplify this experience that we just went through? At the beginning of the process, I did say to the Speaker of the House, well, I like your package, but it's not enough. Why don't you put in ERA? And he just kind of said, well, we've got this tidy package and we're going to do this. And I said, well, that's piecemeal and it's onesie-twosies, but it's important. It's not that it isn't important, it's just not the umbrella. And you see tomorrow's symbol, of the umbrella because all of the issues we've talked about today fit under ERA. They all fit under. So that umbrella is our symbol. So I'm not going to talk a long time. I'm going to talk fast because I know you want to get out there. But what I want to say is they've asked me to talk about grassroots organizing because here I started with, well, I'm going. I said, look around. What is there? Oh, my gosh, there's an equal rights rally in Washington, D.C., and I haven't seen one of that in 30 years. I said, oh, I'm going to that. So I went online, I signed up, and I got my hotel room, and then I went to a group of women that I organized. It's the Women DFL leaders in the state of Minnesota. I'm a former elected official. And I said to them one night when we had a meeting called the Salon, I said, well, I'm going to this rally in Washington, D.C. There's a rally. And Senator Sandy Pappas said, well, we should get a bus. Well, oh my God. And of course, then she left for a month across the world. And so I went, I guess I'm getting a bus, okay? All right, well, haven't ever done that before, and I do have a system when I start something that I know I'm completely inadequate for the task, and I have no idea what I'm gonna do. I have a 4-part system that I do. This is my formula. I make a plan, I bring in the experts, I exceed expectations, and I leave a legacy. That's the 4 things. 4 things. That's all you need to know. So what did I do? So I said, I'm going to make a plan. Well, I got to raise $9,000 for a bus. Whew, okay, I'll do that. And so I say, who do I bring in? Who are the experts? And I said, so in my plan, well, I'm going to get 50 people to come, okay? And so I needed a partner in crime, so I got Rosemary Rocco. And I asked my friends at the Women Leadership Coalition, hey, do you want to be our overall sponsors? Sure, they said yes. So I said, okay, who are the experts? Who do I need to bring in? So I brought in Minnesota Women's Foundation. Bam, $2,500. They were thrilled. They thought this is exactly what we need. I called the Minnesota Women's Consortium. They became my fiscal agent. They did all of the funding piece of it. They helped us advertise it. They put it out. I called my friend Kathy Magnuson from the Women's Press, and Kathy said, well, here, can I put in an ad in my magazine? A beautiful second page, full page ad for free. You know, I just started calling my friends. So then I called the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, and bam, there's 10 of them here. 10. And they gave 11. And they gave a lot of money towards this bus, I can tell you. AFL-CIO helped us. Breaking Free, the wonderful organization. We've got 4 folks from Breaking Free here. I had great feminists like Emily Ann Tuttle and Retha Clark King who have been fighting this fight for decades and decades and decades. They gave us money for the bus. Congressman Keith Ellison gave me money for the bus. Okay? I mean, it goes on and on. I got money from the DFL party of the state of Minnesota. That's the Democrats, folks. They gave us money for the bus, and they don't own this. They don't own it. I let them know. I'm happy to have you support us, and I got to advertise, and they gave me their press list of 600 media outlets. So they were very helpful. So that's how I did it. And here we are today, and God bless you all. I am so happy and so honored and so proud to be standing with you. Can't wait to get out there. I'm wondering if there's anything, oh yes, one last thought, and that is that this begins with a conversation, because as you know, oftentimes we talk about our own issue, and our own issue is so important. But when I come, and I begin a conversation by saying I was raped twice in my life, and I think that was wrong, and there was no recourse, that doesn't get me to where I need to go. But what we can talk about is all of the inequality that starts with the fact that people think that ERA passed in the 1970s. And so they think that we have these equal rights. And we don't, and we don't. When we're not in the Constitution, then we are not at the same level of scrutiny in the courts, and we are not given the same kind of attention in the society. So we need to be doing this. But so it begins with a conversation. We need to tell our girls, our sons, our daughters, our grandparents, our parents, our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, that we're doing this thing and we're going to keep walking up that hill. We're going to keep pushing that boulder up the hill till we reach the summit. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Okay, now, wonderful, wonderful speakers. We're going to need to clear the room very soon. So we are now at the point where we are going to hand out the packets, and I'm going to bring the team leaders up. So if we've got folks from any states where you've never done this before, we'll put you with a team leader. So Tammy and Kathy and Rick and Eileen and Candy, please come up, and Mike and Paula and Betty. Well, Betty's got 37 people. She's got quite a team back there to lead. All right. And this is what we're going to do.